Welcome back to Joe Sin's Rarest Photos. We are reading Child Bride right now. Hope you guys had a great day yesterday. I believe I put an episode of Dolores Hearts for the Heart on the channel. And now we are getting back to Child Bride. We just talked about Mike Stone, Priscilla Presley breaking up the marriage. In fact, going over and getting to know Fran so she could make it not so obvious, you know. It's like there was a fly up there. Anyhow, seems like ever since I started reading this Priscilla book, I get flies in the garage that are attracted to her, I guess. I don't know. Kind of a joke, kind of serious at the same time. All right, so this, so thank you. Hey, by the way, what I'm going to try to do here and there for you members, there's some members that have joined, and once again, you don't have to. If you can help support the channel, that's great. Memberships as low as $9.99. I'm going to put some of these videos up for the first hour, members only, and then they're open to everybody. Might just mean you've got to wait an hour. But it's something for the members to give them something for joining the channel as a member. So I didn't want to make exclusive videos right now because for the most part I want everybody to be able to read everything I do. I don't want it to be a punishment to not be a member. But just so you know, that's if you see something that says members only, it's only going to be for the first hour. Let's see how maybe I get this fly. No. For the first hour, okay? Hour and a half, 2 hours, and then it'll be open to everybody. So we're on chapter 26, The Ex Mrs. Presley, okay? Thank you to you subscribers, all that good stuff, long-term, everybody that comments. There's some amazing comments that are out there. Messaged Billy Stanley a little bit earlier, said, hey, everybody wants you back on, let's find a time. So he gave me a thumbs up, we'll figure it out. This is chapter 26. It's called The Ex Mrs. Presley. All right, the perfect home. Okay, so I started reading part of this already. We read about how the home that Priscilla was decorating hardly had Lisa and Elvis in it. In this book, Suzanne said that Elvis wrote Separate Ways with Red West, so that's not true. Not that Elvis couldn't write, he just didn't feel like he needed to apply himself to do that. And then Kathy Westmoreland said he said he wasn't the marrying kind. Barbara Lee talked about, so I'm just catching up here. Barbara Lee said she cheated on him. He cheated on her. Listen, when you're married to the king, come on, expect him to be faithful. I mean, she knew what she was married to when she married him. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that's in this chapter that we just finished reading. Talked about Elvis spoiling Lisa and Priscilla supposedly trying to keep Lisa grounded by not spending any money on her at all. All right, so here we go. This is where we left off right after that. Okay, even after Priscilla left Elvis, there was still a bond between them. Priscilla at least considered that it worked out actually better because then Lisa and I could pick our times to be with him. It was actually a better relationship. She told Life years after he died that to Elvis she was like this kid he had raised. Like a father, Elvis had mixed feelings about the child he had brought up leaving home. When I first spoke to him, he was resigned to the fact that the divorce was inevitable, said Kathy Westmoreland. And then he vacillated between she has to have her own life and be happy, and being jealous and angry at the way it happened. Elvis did not view Priscilla as his romantic one and only. For George Klein, by that spring, was arranging for him to meet Sybil Shepherd. whom George knew from years earlier when she won the Miss Teenage Memphis pageant. I didn't know Sybil Shepherd was from Memphis. In 1972, she was 23. She was at the height of her movie star glamour, several years after the Last Picture Show and just before the release of The Heartbreak Kid. She was in town, said George, and I mentioned it to Elvis. I mentioned it to Sybil, and she said of course she'd like to meet him. She had just broken up with Peter Bogdanovich, so I took her to Elvis. It was no big romance. Elvis really enjoyed her personality because she's quick. She was also, according to Ricky Stanley, extremely adventurous and physical. Basically, aggressive otherwise. Ricky remembers Elvis' slightly startled reaction after he left Sybil's place at the St. James on Sunset Boulevard in West Hollywood. Let's put it this way, she said once. I think that before I met him, he was physically conservative. Sexually conservative. Trapped in a stupid macho thing. The romance was torrid but brief. Sybil returned to Bogdanovich, and Elvis again embraced his old-fashioned Southern morals. I couldn't handle the whole thing with the pills, said Sybil. Pills to go to sleep, pills to wake up, and I think that lifestyle just limits you. Well, first off, Sybil, with her fame, like that much compared to Elvis, and I'm talking like that much next to an actual mountain on the earth. So, yes, it does limit you, but you're already so limited by your fame. Elvis reconnected with Anne Margaret after one of her performances in Vegas that year. He called her late that night while she was in bed with her husband Roger Smith, hinting that he wanted her to come to his room, but Anne declined. Priscilla and Mike further solidified their love relationship late in March, when Fran Stone filed for divorce and Mike moved in with Priscilla. He also moved in with Lisa at their Marina Del Rey apartment. Now, by June, Fran had been awarded custody of the Stones' two small daughters, and Mike was a free man. A few weeks later, Elvis was introduced to a tall, long-legged former Tennessee beauty queen named Linda Thompson, another George Klein fix-up who would become his permanent live-in girlfriend. She was not the great beauty that Priscilla was. Linda had the requisite long brown hair, but had a coarser, flashier appearance and appeal. Though she was a virgin, and some believed the most compatible of all Elvis's women. She was really good for him, said Kathy, who spent a great deal of time around Elvis and Linda. He laughed a lot with her. She was an intellectual, and she was a poetess, and enjoyed music to an extent. She had an understanding about the artistic side, and was very into the metaphysical stuff, and they had a very good friendship. Ricky stressed that Elvis's thing was not a sexual encounter. Elvis's thing was a companionship. He wanted somebody around. Linda comprehended and accepted this and put in her time. It was Elvis who filed for divorce from Priscilla on August 18, 1972, 6 months after their final encounter in Las Vegas, though the instigator was clearly Priscilla. He did not want the divorce, asserted Ed Hook-Stratton, who filed the petition for Elvis, but then he agreed to it, apparently from the discussions they were having, and he agreed to do it with taste and style. I think Elvis didn't want the scandal. Elvis was a smart businessman. He was a smarter businessman than a lot of people give him credit for. Colonel Parker obviously steered him in a very profiting, money-making direction. And I do believe that he believed the Colonel when he talked about staying away from scandal, because it can derail you. It can derail the money train. Let's just say that. And Elvis needed money to take care of Graceland, to take care of Lisa, to take care of Priscilla, to take care of all the Memphis Mafia, to take care of his family. Probably noticed I got a haircut. You're probably wondering why I even have a bunch of hair sticking out the side. Anyhow, let's continue. Priscilla had been pressing for the divorce since February and was about to go to Hawaii with Mike. She wanted the divorce from Elvis handled quickly, like their wedding, it could be said, which she probably was a big part of with Colonel Parker, right? Her subsequent attorney, Arthur Toll, said Elvis wanted to initiate the proceedings to save his persona. Priscilla acquiesced to his request blindly, as she acquiesced blindly to virtually everything that was presented or suggested to her in connection with the divorce, for she was naive, which is another word for stupid. I'm sorry, that was mean. She was naive, ignorant, which is another word for stupid. And she desperately wanted out of her marriage to Elvis Presley so she could bounce all over Mike Stone in public. Okay, maybe that last part wasn't there. Sorry, Mike. I'm just reading it as I'm feeling. If Mike, I don't think Mike's watching this, but whatever. You know, this was then kind of a crazy time that he's not proud of. Priscilla obviously still proud of it. She and Elvis discussed the settlement at what was to have been their dream house on Montebello in July in a textbook example of the blind leading the blind. Elvis, who had no concept of money and even less interest in it, tossed out the ludicrous figure of $100,000 to Priscilla, who kept insisting that she wanted nothing. Boy, how do we go from wanted nothing to okay, I'll take $100,000, which today's money is about $1 million, if not more. Who kept insisting she wanted nothing. What happened next is a pointed dispute between Priscilla and Ed Hook Stratton, Elvis's lawyer. Now, Hook Stratton's version, what basically happened was very simple. She had a boyfriend and wanted a divorce, so she and Elvis worked out what they thought was fair. I was called to the house, and I said it was not fair. You're going to have to do more for her. And so they went back to work, and the next day sent me a sheet of paper showing their settlement figures, in which this was fair, all right? Priscilla later claimed that Elvis told her $100,000 was more than some people could make in a lifetime. I thought I was going to be taken care of. Elvis wouldn't have said that. Prissy. She just, man, I'll tell you what. People I've talked to that have been around her that know her said that there's not anyone more I shouldn't say anything. Okay. Bob Wall, who became close to Priscilla during her romance with Mike, observed that to her, $100,000 was $1 billion. She had no concept of money. Well, $100,000 was worth more than she deserved, in my opinion. I mean, she didn't help Elvis make money. She wasn't part of his career. I think that there was definitely child support with this as well, not just a $100,000 lump sum. He was paying for Lisa as well. Elvis and Ed Hook Stratton asked Priscilla, after the original offer was extended, to calculate her monthly expenses so they could arrive at a settlement figure that would cover her financial needs. At the time, she had never even opened a checkbook. The businesswoman that she is, right? Just a few years later, she would save Grayson with her business acumen. I mean, seriously, who believes even a bit of that? At the time, she'd never even opened a checkbook, much less looked at a balance statement. Priscilla went to her friend Joan, who remembered that she would say to me, "You pay the bills. How much does it cost for you to live?" She was trying to figure out a budget. She had no idea. She couldn't have known how much it cost for groceries. She never bought them. There were always 12 to 15 people at meals, and it was an open house. And I had a 3-bedroom house over in Beverlywood, Nothing ostentatious, but a maid came once a week, and it was very middle class, and I showed her my books and took out a little ledger. This is what it cost me. The gas, the insurance, yours is going to have to be more. Lisa's probably going to have to go to private school. She had no concept. She couldn't have. And I tried to help her in that way. Well, the revised settlement arrived at and mutually agreed a few days later on July 19th. Included the original $100,000, which is like $1 million plus right now. Let's just say middle class. You got to make $150,000 to be middle class. That's living for freaking 8 years. For what? For trapping somebody and marrying somebody? She didn't contribute to Elvis or their lifestyle or any of that stuff. That was free, funny money for her. Obviously not good enough, right? Not good enough for Priscilla. What is? So, it included the original $100,000 to be paid to Priscilla in cash, tax-free, which is more like $1.5 million then. 50 grand up front and 50,000 within a year, in addition to her new 1971 Mercedes, a 1969 Eldorado, and a 1971 Harley. Elvis also agreed to furnish Priscilla's apartment and to cover her monthly living expenses for the next 5 years, which, interestingly enough, would have been the year he died in 77. Because this was 72. This July of 72. Which she had budgeted at $1,000 a month, which nowadays is about 10 grand. Gosh, that's not living cheaply, is it? Lisa was to receive $500 a month in child support plus tuition, health care, and health and life insurance, along with Elvis's pledge that he would always take care of them. So $500 a month is about 5 grand. 5 grand child support. Lisa was a baby. 4 years old, 5 years old, right? No. Yeah, about 4 years, 4 or 5. Plenty of money. So $1,500 a month, which was like $15,000 a month, plus tuition, all that other stuff. That's the original. That's the original settlement. Ed Hookstratton prepared the marital termination agreement and had it ready for Priscilla to sign on August 15th. Look at this. Look at this. The 15th. The day before Elvis passed away 5 years in the future. As she requested, just before her scheduled trip to Hawaii with Mike Stone. On that date, he sent the settlement agreement and Priscilla to another attorney in his building, Robert Brock, for a quick meeting before she signed it, so it would be clear that she understood what she was doing. Now, the consultation with Brock was cursory at best, for he barely had time to glance over the document, nor did he discuss it at any length with Priscilla, according to Priscilla. Priscilla, however, had repeatedly made it clear that she did not want anything from Elvis. Mike Stone occasionally would ask her about the houses, the cars, the clothes. All of the riches she was given up by divorcing Elvis Presley, and none of it, which she owned, bought herself, or was really truly entitled to as a human. I'm all for it. Like, let's just say a husband and wife get married. She greatly contributes to the success of the husband, or let's just say the husband greatly contributes to the success of the wife. They both grow something together. Okay? Down the road, they get divorced. Yes, 50-50 split. 100% agree with that. In the case of this, I don't even want to call her a lady. This female, in case of this female, she didn't deserve nothing. Lisa did. You know, Lisa was going to be taken care of. But she, and I think she knew she didn't deserve anything, which is why she asked for nothing. A great big zero. But Elvis gave her something. Gave her lots of something. So Priscilla said, at no point in our relationship did I ever feel that any of these things were mine. That's the truth. Good for you, Priscilla. Before you became a greedy, conniving little... Anyways. Never did I feel like any of these things were mine. They were always his things. I never felt like I shared in any of his life anyways. She said I could walk away from this right now with what I have, and what I have is mine, and what back there is his. I did not go in there looking for something that was extraordinary, Priscilla confirmed later. I didn't go in there to sink him. I didn't go in there to rip him off. I wanted to do this amicably. She wanted out at any cost. She wanted to do it amicably until she was a greedy, conniving little. Not long after, right? And then she ripped everything out of Elvis and changed his life, changed the trajectory. She is a huge responsible factor for his death. You know, the stress, the financial stress that she put him under. Because he went from, I don't want anything, to I'm entitled to this. You committed intrinsic fraud, Elvis, on me. Let's continue reading. This is very enlightening. Rona Barrett, who had broken the news of Elvis and Priscilla's wedding before it even happened, now announced their impending divorce on her television broadcast on July 13th, a month before Elvis actually filed the petition. A week earlier, gossip Joyce Haber had reported the breakup in her column as a blind item, hinting that the wife of the superstar singer had more than a casual interest in her karate instructor. The coming months, in some ways the happiest of Priscilla's life, according to Mike, were also, by her own description, her struggle. Priscilla telephoned Elvis from Hawaii during her holiday with Mike, according to a later affidavit filed in the divorce, telling him they'd had a fight and that she might want to come back. Ooh. So this was the, it gets shared around a lot. The little newspaper article clipping that said Priscilla wanted to come back. It's usually attributed at Christmas time. And Elvis said, no, don't take my bed for granted. So that early, if this is completely accurate. Priscilla telephoned Elvis from Hawaii during her holiday with Mike. The name holiday might be the reason why it is confused. According to a later affidavit filed in the divorce, telling him that they'd had a fight and that she might want to come back. The argument with Mike blew over, but it signaled Priscilla's confused, emotional state. When the movers drove up to her new little apartment with some of her belongings, Priscilla stood in the living room, watching them set down cartons, thinking, my God, can I do this alone? She was having an anxiety attack. Since July, when the Joyce Haber column hit the newspapers with a reference to her affair with Mike Stone, Priscilla had become the pariah of the Elvis world, as she should be. I had no idea the bigness of what I had encountered. The world loved this man. The world loves this man. And I was looked at the time, and now, still Priscilla, as the traitor. And no one really looked at it from my point of view. She saw herself as a victim. She's this, she's that, and knowing that you are not that way. So you realize you have to move on in life. The moving on that I did was to survive. Priscilla eventually stopped taking Lisa to the supermarket, for the divorce was the cover story of every tabloid. The media blew everything so out of proportion. I felt like a little pea in this big world that was condemning me. All I wanted was my life. I had no idea that the impact which the divorce was going to make. Priscilla eventually started taping her phone calls because she got some threats. I had no idea that it would be this ominous. Getting threats from fans all over the world that I had broken his heart. And I got threats for marrying him. No matter what I did, I was condemned. It was a no-win situation. Priscilla did not feel responsible for Elvis's subsequent deterioration. Why? Because she's a victim. She's the victim. Elvis took advantage of her as an adult. If there was any way of making things work out, it would have been great. But unfortunately it didn't, because I didn't care. Okay, I added the I didn't care. Priscilla didn't say that. Okay? Just my thinking in my mind. But unfortunately it didn't. It was a different time. Not that I grieve about it, you know. I don't grieve about it at all. That part I made up myself. I don't grieve about it, you know, it's kind of like, you know, ridiculous. I mean, Elvis was his own worst enemy, said Priscilla. Elvis had a lot of demons that he carried with him. And when you're living with a person who is like that, well, listen, his own father couldn't get through to him. He had a lot of baggage that he brought into our marriage. Different tune than what she's spending right now for $150 a ticket, right? Okay. Priscilla, by leaving Elvis, was looking out for Priscilla. A survival skill she would advocate 2 decades later for other wives in similar situations. I don't want to be portrayed as a victim. I'm not a victim. And I think that's the worst thing one can do. It sounds like you're portraying yourself as a victim. Anyways, because then you've submitted. Then you've given up hope. You've got to be strong. Know there's a way out. Know there's a solution. But once you become a victim, that's it. You are no good to anybody. Priscilla, you are no good to anybody for the most part. I mean, you have a very small group of people that follow you and buy tickets only because they're envious that you were around Elvis. It's got nothing to do with Priscilla Presley or Priscilla Bobblehead or Priscilla Boyu. She's not even allowed to use the name Presley anymore. That's why all of her marketing says Priscilla. That's it. Not allowed to use Presley. She sold it. Not even her name anyways. Should be Priscilla Garibaldi, because she effectively was married to him in California. So here's her continued advice. Once you become a victim, that's it. You're no good to anybody. Your children, your husband, your future. And I'm sorry, I can't take the victim route. There's a way out. It may take a while, but there's a light at the end. But you have to have the right attitude to and know that there is. She was not nearly so triumphant in the autumn of 1972 when her divorce was finalized. Phyllis Mann, who had helped Priscilla decorate the Montebello house in Bel Air the year before, was stunned to see the ex-wife of Elvis Presley living in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a singles complex in West LA, and even more aghast when she learned the decorating budget her client allotted. All of her furniture she got from Levitt's, recalled Olivia Bies, the young fashion designer who owned Priscilla's favorite Beverly Hills boutique, which really astounded me. To say that Priscilla was caught by surprise at her financial struggles as a single mother and divorcee was an understatement, declared Phyllis. She began casting about for something to do with her time and energy, now that she was not constrained by Elvis's dictates, and she approached Olivia about taking on a partnership in her clothing store. At the time, said Olivia, I was going through a lot of financial problems. I was more an artist. I was not a business person, and I had something happen with the IRS in which they closed me up. Priscilla, you are a genius. You are so smart in your business decisions, Priscilla. Well, we know she got involved with Olivia, right? Priscilla offered to buy Olivia's boutique, thereby keeping Olivia from going out of business and providing Priscilla with an identity, and I'm going to add, which once again wasn't hers. Nothing original about that girl, that woman. Olivia needed $7,000 to keep the IRS at bay and to bring Priscilla in as a full partner. And so she looked at me and said, you know what? I'm going to get the money from my lawyer, and I'm not going to tell him anything. I'm just going to tell him I want to open a business. The lawyer in question was Elvis's attorney, Ed Hook Stratton, whom Priscilla asked for startup money for her boutique. She was also occupied with choosing the right preschool for Lisa and turned to Ed's wife, who was an actress, Patricia Crowley, for advice. Pat recommended the John Dye School, an exclusive academy hidden in the hills of Bel Air. We had friends who had a daughter there, Pat remembered, and they helped get her in. Lisa, age 4, was becoming a petty tyrant, ordering people about like the princess of rock and roll she was. If she saw someone sitting on the fence at Graceland, she would command the person to get off. And if they said, how come you tell me like that? I don't know. One of the maids recalled she'd say, I own all of this. Ricky Stanley said simply, she knew who she was. She knew who her daddy was. Priscilla had embarked on a radically different lifestyle as the girlfriend of Mike Stone than she experienced as the cloistered wife of a celebrity demigod. It was a whole new life for her, said Bob Wall. Mike was very physical. I mean, my God, Mike did everything. He became a 77 handicap golfer in like a year and a half. A brilliant athlete. They'd come over to our place, and we'd play ping pong and pool. We'd swim. We'd play basketball. We'd go running. We'd do everything. And Priscilla would participate. Okay, volleyball. We were all just a physical group. Chuck Norris had a race boat at his beck and call, so we'd go out on the boat all the time. I think that period of time opened Priscilla up to what life was like. Now, once again, I gotta say, I'm sure Priscilla did enjoy that. You know, I think she was just running along after Mike. It really wasn't her. But I think that it was fun. It had to be fun for her. I mean, once again, to somewhat give her an excuse, her parents did pretty much have an unwritten agreement with themselves to be greedy and sell Priscilla, in a sense. Trap Priscilla, trap Elvis. So, this is before the second settlement that we're talking about. So we know who funded a lot of this. Priscilla. Now, Bob Wall believed Priscilla and Mike to be deeply in love, and Olivia assumed that they would marry. From what Priscilla told her, she wanted a normal life, Olivia said. She wanted to try to have a normal life for Lisa. Priscilla had emerged from a sheltered subculture into the real world with sudden brutality of an infant delivered from the womb and slapped into a new reality. Bob Wall, who had a successful real estate business in addition to his karate classes, was struck by her utter naivety with respect to money. Elvis didn't give anybody much money. Apparently, his attitude toward money was, whatever you want, put it on a credit card. What do you need money for? So she didn't really understand money. I remember being amused at her not knowing the value of things. She didn't know $10 from $10,000. It just had no meaning to her. She didn't pay attention to school, obviously. Priscilla asked Elvis for more money to redecorate her apartment and to buy additional furnishings for her younger sister, 17-year-old Michelle, who was moving in with Priscilla and Lisa. Well, Elvis flourished in the role of father-provider, doling out funds for furniture and giving Priscilla a new Jaguar for Christmas that year. In January 1973, Ed Hook Stratton drew up plans for Priscilla's new 50-50 partnership with Olivia. Priscilla came up with a name for the new boutique, Beast and Beau, a combination of Olivia's last name and Mike's nickname for Priscilla. Neither Priscilla nor Olivia had the slightest notion on how to operate a business. They were like girls playing Barbie. Priscilla was astonished at the price of fabric, and for the very first time she visited the garment center. Their ignorance was almost comical. We were true babes in the woods, admitted Olivia. It was really a shame that we didn't know anything. We didn't even know about licensing. What we could have done then with the exposure that the shop was getting and Priscilla was getting, and we just had so much at our fingertips, which had nothing to do with Priscilla or Olivia Beast. They would have used Elvis for the exposure and made the money because of that. Elvis's physical decline began during his first Las Vegas appearance after the divorce in January or February 1973. He canceled 3 shows because of illness. Now, Linda Thompson's with Elvis right now, just to kind of give you all the timeline. She said she spent the very first year with Elvis without one day being apart. So she knew that he was faithful. So Elvis's physical decline began during his first Las Vegas appearance after the divorce in January or February of 1973. He canceled 3 shows because of illness. Priscilla took Lisa to the Hilton, Elvis's new venue in Vegas, on February 1st, Lisa's 5th birthday, to watch her daddy perform, an event that would become an annual ritual. Linda Thompson, Elvis's new girlfriend, sat at the same table but was reportedly ignored by Prissy. I know Priscilla and Linda really had a dislike for each other, said Sheila Ryan Can, who came into Elvis's life a few years later while he was still with Linda. Sheila's impression was that Elvis's new girlfriend and his former wife were jealous of each other, even though Priscilla had left Elvis. See, she was finished with him, but you know wives, they like to exert control. Part of the rivalry in Sheila's estimation was because they were similar in nature, as far as possessiveness and jealousy and envy and all that. Sheila saw both Linda and Priscilla as catty, an observation that was born out of their public and private comments about each other. Priscilla would later describe Linda's redecoration of Graceland while she was Elvis's girlfriend as a Mae West type of look. Linda, who was a friendly, demonstrative man's woman, naturally gravitated towards the brassy Vegas style that Elvis preferred. She had redone the first floor of the Memphis mansion in red, though it wasn't just red, Priscilla once told a reporter, shuddering. It had feathers. It had teardrop lighting. It had leopard skin pillows. It had fake fur throw rugs. Linda, for her part, had ceased talking about Priscilla by 1996, saying that she didn't know her that well, and what I did know was fairly negative. I don't know a lot of nice things that I could say. Who does? Who does? Nobody. Nobody says nice things about Priscilla. And she has no friends. Not really. That's why I can't read this book every single day. The evident tension between the two women was almost certainly heightened by Lisa's obvious affection for Linda, whom she idolized, according to Dee Presley. They were really, really close. Seconded Dee's son, Ricky, who had agreed that there may have been a little bit of envy on Priscilla's part for that reason. Elvis's confusion, anguish, and regret about the end of his marriage revealed itself in long, rambling phone calls to Priscilla, according to Priscilla, during which he would occasionally express hope they might get back together, although he declined her to come back home. See what I'm saying? Makes no sense. Sounds like a bunch of Priscilla stories. Priscilla later cited this as evidence that Elvis was still in love with her. Even though he was dating Linda, he was still on the phone with me. I don't know how she did it, because I never left his life. And that's hard for another woman to have to cope with. Ta 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 ta. T T T T. Linda and others felt that Priscilla exaggerated or misinterpreted Elvis' communications with her. He was calling to talk to Lisa. And she probably stayed on the phone, asking for more money, probably. Hinting around that she would like this. I would really like this, Elvis. And I'd like to, my mom would like this, Elvis. Alright, so Linda and others felt Priscilla exaggerated or misinterpreted Elvis's communications with her, and they denied that he was still in love with her. I only heard negative things, said Linda. Of course, I was there when he was going through his divorce with her. Linda, by many accounts, including that of Cecil Ree, who spent much time around Linda and Elvis in Memphis, was possessed to marry Elvis, at least in the early stages of their relationship. Linda put a lot of pressure on him, I think because she wanted to marry him so bad. Finally, she just got to where she didn't talk about marriage so much because I guess she finally figured out Elvis just wasn't going to get married again. Cecil asked Elvis in the mid-70s if he and Linda were going to get married, and he goes, no, honey, I'll never marry again. He just looked at me and said, I've just realized that marriage, it's just not for me, Cecil. He said, well, experience is the best teacher. Ed Hookstratton, who later managed Linda Thompson, felt she was climbing a mountain because of Priscilla, and I think that Elvis was horribly embarrassed. Oh, okay. Well, it's about time to wrap it up. Okay, yeah, we'll wrap it up right. No, let me read a little bit more. I'm gonna finish this page. I'm on 256. Okay. The truth of that statement was made terribly pathetically evident in 1973 when Elvis again gathered his mafia about him and told them in apparent seriousness that he wanted them to find and hire a man to take out Mike Stone. Ed Parker attributed this sad turn of events to an attempt on Mike Stone's part to restrict Elvis's access to Lisa, ostensibly out of concern over his increasing prescription use. Whatever the catalyst, exacting revenge on Mike became Elvis's obsession, according to Suzanne and the Memphis Mafia. He called Priscilla at her apartment in Marina del Rey and threatened to come over and take out Mike himself. Mike overheard Priscilla's end of one conversation when he saw her crying on the phone. She was very nervous and scared. When Priscilla hung up, she repeated to Mike Elvis's threats that he was going to bring some of his guys on his private plane and make your boyfriend get on his knees and beg. And I said to her, well, he can come over. I'm here all the time. Mike later claimed to have been unafraid. My mentality might have been a little different than most people in certain respects. Mike says, I accepted death. It's inevitable. And at that stage, Elvis's reaction was something we had talked about many times, and we had come to this conclusion, at least I had, that something might happen. So it didn't surprise me when shit hit the fan, so to speak, and I just accepted it. If he wanted to come, I wasn't going to hide. Sheila Ryan Kahn, who was around Elvis and his entourage constantly in the mid-70s, scoffed at the idea. Oh, he talked real big, but nobody was ever going to do anything. The Memphis Mafia was better tagged as the gang that couldn't do anything. They were just a bunch of Southern boys. They weren't going to go do nothing bad to anybody. A few of the guys later claimed that Red or Sonny West had found someone. Okay, that's where we'll stop right there, okay? I hope you enjoyed it. I got to get to work. It's pretty early. Got a company picnic and got some severe weather coming through. Hopefully y'all stay safe. I hope none of y'all were from the Kentucky area and St. Louis area that got hit pretty bad by the tornadoes. Horrible. 25 people lost their lives. Take care, everybody. Okay. I love seeing your comments. I worry when I don't see comments as often as I do sometimes. So I'm glad that y'all reach out to me in an email once in a while and say, hey, I've been busy. And then you check on me as well, okay? This is Joe Centriero's Photos, TCB, TLC. Till next time, you are much loved. You really are.